All right, welcome back to Green Bay Football Corporation for another midweek mock draft. Now, just a month away from round one of the NFL draft. So, I wanted to look at what are some possible trade up scenarios for the Packers and who might they be interested in moving up with some of this, variety of draft capital rather that they've got with 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and so on. So, let's take a look at what that could be. Right now, if you look at the Rich Hill trade chart, pick 41 is worth, 146 points. Pick 58 is worth 93 points. So what that really means is if you pair pick 25 and 41, you're really looking at getting up to about pick 10. You might be able to swing it for 9. Obviously, 11 is a little bit better value for those teams, but at pick 9 is Chicago and pick 11 is Minnesota. So if you want to wedge yourself right in between them, that's the Jets at pick 10. And I think that would be a relatively, opportune place to possibly move to if you wanted to get up that high. I don't think we necessarily need to get that high. With pick 58, you can get all the way to probably pick 14, 14 or 15. And so that ends up being New Orleans at 14 or Indianapolis at 15. So who am I thinking that the Packers might want to go up to get from there? I've got a number of guys that I would look at, and that would be like a couple tackles, because so far everything I've been looking at, it looks like we're going to probably see 7 or 8 tackles go before the Packers would pick at 25. And that's, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, Talisa Fuaga, Troy Fautanu, Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, Graham Barton, if he ends up going before he gets to 25, and if you view him ultimately as a tackle, and then Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. So those are the tackles that are likely going. There's also more likely than not 4 quarterbacks that are going. Not that Green Bay is interested in that, but that's just interesting to know that probably 4 out of the first 10 picks are going to be quarterbacks. So there's going to be some premium positions or premium targets at positions that Green Bay would actually want that'll be available towards the end of that top 10 and into like the mid-teens. And the other ones that I would look at would be cornerbacks, and that's Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold from Alabama. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into PFF Mock Draft Simulator. I've got everything set up here. We're going to do 5 rounds today, and sticking with the public board, adjusted a little bit to just kind of middle of the road for drafting for needs, and then just a little bit of randomness along the way. But I really want to see how the first 10 picks or so shake out, and then see if that's something that we want to potentially address. So let's see, we got 10 picks in here, and we already saw a number of tackles go. So surprisingly, Joe Alt lasted all the way till 9. Fuaga was actually the first tackle off the board here, and then Olu Fashanu again at 10, which is, tackle is still likely on the Jets' radar at that pick. So that leaves, Fautanu, Mims, Latham, Guyton, Barton. I believe Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold are both still there. So I'm going to look at letting this thing go to get to 14 and then see where we see things from there. All right, so pick 14 is up. Quinyon Mitchell went to 11 with the Vikings, which, again, I don't think that the Vikings are even going to pick at 11 if things go the way that they're hoping to. I think they want to get up to, I'm thinking 3. Ideally for Drake May is my kind of gut assumption there for the Vikings, but it could end up being somebody like JJ McCarthy as well. So let's go ahead and offer this up. So we're going to get 14 in exchange for pick 25 and 58. And we'll see if we can't recoup a little bit, later in the 5th round, I believe that is, with pick 150. So we'll offer this trade up, and they accept that. So here we are at pick 14. And so we've got our pick of Terrion Arnold or a few of these tackles. So let's take a look at the tackles, because I think that's the way that I'm likely going to want to go here. And my initial instinct is to go Troy Fautanu here, the tackle out of Washington. I would also be very comfortable with Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham here as well. but I'm personally just going to be going with Troy Fautanu here. Um, let's see what is some of what they say about him. Some of his pros are, flexible groin and hips to sit low and really get into his pass pro stance. Fast feet, impressive athlete for his size, which he is a big boy, 6'4", 317. Also in that range of where the Packers actually like to draft tackles to play tackle at. So interesting enough there. Good leg drive and excellent handwork, which just shows that he's a technician. So we're going to go ahead and take Troy Fautanu here. So that leaves us picking at 41 next, and kind of the way I see it left with you know tackle addressed here, and then not having pick 58. 41 is kind of where I want to see. Are these two linebackers still in play here? And this might be the spot where we need to address it. And both of them still are. Um, I'm personally very high on Peyton Wilson. Again, everybody understands the injury concerns. I think he's the type of player that if you've got a relatively comfortable spot on his medicals, that you go with him because he is head and shoulders, I think, the better middle linebacker prospect. So if we were looking for a true Mike to come in and fit into this defense for Halfley, I think Peyton Wilson is our guy. So um, we'll look at some of what the other options are here as well. Obviously, Tyler Newman is slipping in the draft boards here, and that's where we see him going. Um, Cornerback could also be interesting since we didn't address that here. Let's take a look at who we've got available at corner. I know a lot of people like Mike Sanderstill, really looking for a slot corner. Max Melton, obviously big name, and then you see Jerrion Jones and Renardo Green, who are both also potential options in the slot there. But I mean, I think we can address that a little bit later. So I'm going to go with Peyton Wilson here. Obviously, familiar with the medical side of it. Obviously, the big con is his extensive injury history. If you're not familiar with it yourself, essentially he's had two ACL injuries. One his senior year of high school. The next one was either his initial season or kind of like a gap year when he first got to NC State, from what I've read. And then he also had a little bit of a shoulder injury a couple of years ago. But he's had 2 years in a row now where he's been relatively healthy. So maybe that's behind him, and then that's a thing. But he's got good length. He's really, really reactive and quick to fire his gun when he sees and reads the play. So he's not afraid to go downhill and get the ball carrier. Kind of a see ball, get ball linebacker, and then good in coverage. Covers a lot of ground with his shuffling and good speed. Obviously, he ran really well at the combine for that. So we're going to go ahead and take Peyton Wilson out of NC State with pick 41. So now we've got a bit of a wait here, and I would love to see somebody like Javon Bullard on there, who just went pick 53. You could potentially look at trading back into those spots, but at what point are we losing too much of that draft capital? I'm actually really interested to look at the overall construction of the Packers roster and kind of see how many draft picks do we actually think are going to make the roster in 2024, and see if that maybe means that we're likely to kind of use some of that those picks as draft capital and move around the board to pick up the guys that we really want. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Max Melton fell here. He's been going late 70s and early 80s a lot here. So to fall to pick 88, I think that's good value for him there. Cornerback is one of the spots I would like to address here. I was also looking at Jerrion Jones heavily in that spot. I think he fits the overall profile, 6 foot 191. He's a redshirt senior, and we don't know what his age is. So I wouldn't be surprised if if they do have an option to go a little bit younger, maybe they do that and compare that to Melton, who is not redshirt, just a junior. So likely year and a half to 2 years younger than Jerrion Jones there. So cornerback is kind of where I'm looking. Let's see what else might we be interested in. So I would say defensive interior here would be potentially interesting. Edge. Let's look at the interior offensive line. We talked a bit about Christian Mahogany on the channel so far. Cedric Van Pran being a Georgia guy, Goody loves his kind of you know, Georgia boys really in the draft. He's a big SEC proponent as he spent most of his time as a scout down in that region. So likes to go back to that his old stomping ground to pick up players, and rightfully so. The SEC is really not arguably the best conference; it just outright is. So I'm gonna go Max Melton here with pick 88. I think that's good value to have him fall there as he has continued to rise up boards. So just a couple picks later here, back at 91. If you haven't seen yet or you just joined, we got not Talisi Fuaga, pardon. We got Troy Fautanu in the first round, trading up to pick 14. So we addressed tackle there. We ended up going with Peyton Wilson at 41, gave up 58 in order to move up to 14. And then we were at 88 and we picked Max Melton. So here we are at pick 91. We got a linebacker addressed. We've got a cornerback, a slot corner primarily addressed. And then we've also got offensive tackle. So safety would be potentially interesting here. And let's take a look at what that looks like, as well as defensive interior, because I could see it going really either way here. Safety, Kalen Bullock, undersized. I do like DTD. I think he would be a good pick here. Michael Hall, somebody the Packers actually just recently met with and who tested really well at the Ohio State Pro Day. I think he's a definite target here. I haven't had a chance to watch Cole Bishop, though I've heard really good things about him as far as a prospect there. So I think at this spot, I'm going to go. It's a little bit rich for what his overall draft position is here, but I think I'm going to end up going DTD. Just real quick, take a look at running back, though. I don't think it's enough of a need for us to press for it here with pick 91. So, yeah, I think we've got a few options later on, some intriguing guys. Obviously, Packers fans likely in on Braylon Allen. I don't know if that's really going to be the best fit for us, but Will Shipley, that kind of speedier, more elusive back. Isaac Guerrero is an interesting, athletic freak to potentially look at. But we'll talk about those guys maybe a little bit later here as we get further into this thing. But we're going to go DTD safety from Texas Tech here at pick 91. So now I got a little bit of a wait. We'll see kind of as we enter the fourth round, looking at defensive interior offensive line, and then also probably going to double dip at linebacker again and see who's available there. So let's take a look at all of those. Interior offensive line, defensive interior. No, let's throw edge on there too, though. I don't know if there's anyone that's great value here. And then they're running back at there too. So Cooper Beebe, big name that we've seen a lot. One of the for many people, one of the top interior offensive linemen in this draft. Having him fall this far would be good value. I mean, generally around the ranking that people have for him, but very highly seen as an interior offensive lineman. Just one of those things that the value at interior spots isn't as high really compared to the tackle market, basically. I'm not really liking edge here. A lot of running backs available still. And then my guy, Cedric Gray here, linebacker. I think we could possibly go that route, but let's take a look at McKinley Jackson here. Play nose, 3 technique in a 4-3 scheme, which is what we're likely going to. Got pretty good size. Let's see, quick one gap penetrating DT, effective arm move over. The slippery is 330 pounder. You'll see, which is good. Slippery, plus having that beef to anchor a little bit in that run game would be good. Moved easily by double team, so maybe he can't anchor as well as you'd like. Not effective on stunts, so I don't know. Maybe a project for that front of the Packers to work with there. I am going to go take a look at Leonard Taylor here as well. 6'3", 305, a little bit lighter. Um, built like a supersized linebacker. Not necessarily what you want to read about a defensive tackle that you're maybe looking at. I think he'd probably, but based on that, really be a little bit small for what the Packers would want. I am going to go McKinley Jackson here and shore up a little bit of that defensive interior, help run stop there as well. Um, I still have my eye on in the 5th round if he can make it all the way there. Tanner Bortolini as somebody that the Packers would really like, and I think if he's available here, he might be not 210. He can go further yet. Okay, very interesting. I thought he was a little bit higher on boards than that, especially after that combine. Um, all right, so haven't addressed interior offensive line. Go back to that. Um, look at that linebacker class. So some of those guys: J.D. Bertrand, Michael Barrett. Um, maybe a double dip at safety as well. Bo Braid is an interesting name. Malik Mustafa, though, might be a little undersized. He just flies around on the football field. He's fun to watch. Very, as it says here, reminiscent of Bob Sanders. Very aggressive and a fluid athlete at that spot. Will hit with everything he's got, which, 5'11", 207. He's got a decent amount for a decent size at safety, but not quite as tall as maybe the Packers would want there. But I think a very intriguing spot. Bo Braid's another interesting guy here. 6'1", 210. Similar size, obviously 2 inches taller and about the same weight, but willing tackler, which is going to be important for the defensive backs in Hafley's scheme. Middling athleticism, though that's most of the safety class, it seems, for the 2024 draft. So interesting spot there. And I think at this point I want to double up at safety, and I'm going to go with Malik Mustafa because I just think his kind of presence that he shows on film is something that his energy is infectious, and I think that would do really well for a defensive backfield that the Packers have there. So the final pick that we'll have in this mock draft is pick 169, and this is actually a pretty interesting spot towards the end of the 5th to look at quarterback because, Goody talked about wanting to get back to drafting quarterbacks every year, essentially. And to be able to do that, you don't want to go too early. And this is an interesting spot potentially for them to target that. You see Joe Milton, obviously a big project, huge arm, built like a linebacker, basically 6'5", 235, huge dude. Age is one of those spots that was interesting enough. Peter Bukowski and Jason Hirschhorn talked about it on Locked On Packers earlier this week about not being a spot that the Packers really are too strict on age as a threshold when they're targeting quarterbacks in the mid to late rounds as guys to develop, because they're really looking for guys who have a lot of experience playing and have some kind of aspect about them that they can develop. So that experience is good where they're not going to be two phased stepping in on short notice when the number one guy goes down, kind of thing. Milton didn't necessarily have that much playing experience. One of those guys that would be interesting here for them, probably a little bit later actually, is Keaton Slovis, who's played a lot of ball at BYU. I want to say it's like, I don't have much on him here. That's killing me. I want to say he's played like 5 years, I think, at BYU, and somehow still had a year of eligibility left. So he's played a lot of ball and would be an interesting guy to keep an eye on for the Packers in the draft. Let's take another look at linebacker here, and then we'll look at edge as well, because I do think ideally they would have probably addressed edge earlier than this, but definitely a spot that we can potentially look at taking a flyer. There's a guy that I've I've heard a little bit about, again, kind of that mid-sized, edge that the Packers don't really have too much of. Enagbare is kind of that smallest guy that the Packers have had, but isn't, like, superiorly quick. I'm not too familiar with Jalen Harrell to see if he would necessarily fit that mold or not. Um, let's look at their other edge in Michigan here. 6'6", 267, much more the traditional Packers build for an edge that they would be looking at. Um, Again, this late in the game, PFF doesn't even have a whole lot of um, insight to give us on this. So I'm going to take a shot here on Braden McGregor out of Michigan at pick 169 for the Packers here, and that'll do it for this week's midweek mock draft. Be curious to see what you guys think about this in the comments. Do you like the idea of the Packers trading up in the first round? Ultimately, like, let me know who is your guy that you'd be pounding the table for to get up in the draft and go pick, somewhere in the mid-teens range where the Packers definitely have the resources to get to. I think Troy Fautanu, Peyton Wilson, um, I think these first three picks could end up very well being a really nice draft class if Peyton Wilson ends up shaking out with the medical side of things. Not to mention Dadrian Taylor Demerson, very nice option there. Overall, I mean, I think PFF generally likes this draft. I think this addresses a fair number of the needs. I would have liked to probably revisit running back in hindsight here, maybe, but I think the ability to double up at safety, which is still a position of need, and I mean, with one of these guys that could potentially end up, playing some in the slot as well, would be interesting. But it's one of those spots where we addressed it in free agency with Xavier McKinney, but I mean, we've done that before and then still gone out and spent significant resources in the draft. Think of, Rashawn Gary with a very early first round pick right after we signed two edges in free agency, or even that same draft, really drafting Savage, despite the fact that we just picked up Amos in free agency as well. So there's not a ton of gaps on this Packers roster, and I think this draft generally addresses what some of your bigger question marks are and gives you some options there as well. And like a guy like Malik Mustafa, even if he's not on the field day one playing safety, he's gonna give you quality reps with his mentality and his physicality on special teams as well. So there's value there for that. Um, but let me know, like I said, in the comments, what do you think? Should the Packers be looking to trade up? And if so, who do you want them to take? Appreciate you coming to hang out with me during this midweek mock, and we'll see you next week, Thursday at 9:15 p.m.